Let me start off, first of all, by welcoming you to the Schulz Museum. And this place would not have taken place had it not been for a couple of key people. One is Jeannie. If you would stand, Jeannie, and we can acknowledge Jeannie for making this happen. And in association with Jeannie was Ed Anderson, who couldn't make it today, but those two really put this thing together. And I'm going to need some light to see that. There we go. I'd also like to introduce the great Karen, who's in charge of the museum. As she's our director, and without her, this place wouldn't happen either. So thank you, Karen, for all you do. The other thing I want to mention is the staff here is phenomenal, and it can be verified if after this event sometime, if you weren't here last night, to go over to the gift shop, second floor in the gift shop, we have a display that kind of tells a story of how the ice arena came together. It has some great pictures from all the events that take place through the years. And this exhibit would not have happened had it not been for the great Toma, who works here, and Benjamin, who is new to the building, and Lauren. They put those exhibits together. They're beautiful. Make sure you get over there before the weekend ends to see that exhibit. I think you're going to love it. And of course, this event, this 50th event of the Ice Arena, wouldn't have happened without some key people. We started planning this thing probably a year and a half ago, and thank you to the team who put that together, which consists of my dear wife, Judy Schulz, Helen Sherricks, Barbara Rossini, Linda Frawley, and Lynn Bastianon. And it's one other special person I'd like to mention in this thing, because there's one person out of all of you that really, really, really wanted to be here for this event. And sadly, he didn't make it. And that would be my dear friend, Jim Doe. And if we could have just a moment of silence in memory of Jim Doe for 15 seconds, I would appreciate it. Thank you. And now I'm going to show you a little clip of Jim. Okay, it says I need a password up here. And I don't know the password. And we can save that for the end. Unless you want to send somebody to help me. Anyhow. I think what's interesting about the ice arena, looking back on it, is you kind of wonder what makes it so memorable. You know, and I know that in most of our lives, when you look back on it, it seems like there's one sweet spot in almost everybody's life. Invariably, it's the high school years. It's the music, it's the cars, it's the people, it's everything else. And I think with the ice arena, what's the touch among all you people and all the employees and past employees is it's similar to high school. For most people, it was their first job. It was their first interaction with a lot of friends. A lot of marriages came out of the ice arena. And in here, who raised your hands who got married from the ice arena? I mean, I was one of them. Monte was one of them. I think we had 40 or 50 marriages occur from the ice arena, and that could be any number of kids. Who knows about that? But to me, I think that was really the connection. I think that's why this place is so special. It's more than a brick and mortar. It really was, you know, fond memories for all of us. How it all came to be. Everybody asks, how did this ice arena come to be? Well, I want to take you back. I'm going to take you back to the early 1960s. We moved out here in '58, and the family was really into bowling, believe it or not. We bowled a lot in Sebastopol. We did bowling leagues. And one night, the family was up at the Hilltopper, and the Hilltopper was over by Haworth Park on top of the hill, for those of you who remember it. And as my parents drove down the road leaving Hilltopper, they looked ahead, and there was a sign, and it was flashing, ice skating, ice skating, ice skating. And they thought that would be really cool. Let's go check out the ice skating. So we went to the ice arena. The whole family went skating, except for me. I walked next door and kind of hung out at the Cotty Museum, believe it or not, while they all skated. And the family got hooked on skating. And we ended up getting to the point where we skated in the local ice shows. We became good friends with Skippy and Merle and their sister Margaret. And we were there constantly. I remember my 8th grade class, every time the school would end on Friday, my whole 8th grade class would go to the ice arena to skate. And then sadly, the building got saturated and the beams became dilapidated and the place had to be shut down. So my parents went home, and as the story was told, my dad said they were laying in bed, and my mom says, we really should build an ice arena for the kids of Sonoma County. And my dad thought that was a great idea. So my mom partnered with Ed Doty, who had built a lot of stuff on the coffee grounds where he lived, and asked if he would build the ice arena. Now, he had never built an ice arena before in his life. And really, you think about it, he only had a year and a half to figure out how to build an ice arena, and he did that. It was a phenomenal job, and the testament is that it's still here 50 years later, and it's still running and looking like new. So kudos to Ed. And that's kind of how it all came to be. So after this is over, after we go through the panel discussion, I want you to know that the museum is offering tours of the museum and all the new exhibits. We have a new exhibit that's Woodstock in there. That's a great exhibit, just went up a couple weeks ago. So take advantage of the tours if you want to. And now let me introduce you to our panel. We have a panel of my brother Monte, my sister Jill, Karen Kresge, and the world famous Beagle Judy. I'm going to start off. And they're going to tell stories from their favorite moment of the Ice Arena years here. And we've only given them about 5 or 6 minutes, so they can't go too long. But I'm going to start off with Karen Kresge. Karen Kresge was around from 1979 to 2003. Karen produced, directed, choreographed all of Charles Schulz's world-famous ice shows that we showcased every Christmas. And on top of that, she starred in them. She was a skater. So Karen, the floor is yours.
Okay, thanks. Thank you very much. Yes, I'm Karen Kresge, and I did, as Craig said, from 79 to 2003, all of the professional ice shows that were produced here. And I'd love to take full credit, but of course my team, it was Sparky and we would create it. And I certainly need to mention, the self-taught people. Craig Gates was a self-taught, wannabe set designer. Rick Samuels became the self-taught wannabe lighting designer. And we all originally sort of, am I okay? Okay. It sort of became, it was interesting. Yesterday, the guy from the Press Democrat called, and I had this interview, and it was stuff that I know, and I say often, but the day before the panel today, to say it again to him, really brought the lovely memories back, and it really just made me feel wonderful. And I said to him, when we started, it was a little bit like, let's put on, Mickey Rooney, Judy Garland, let's put on a show in the barn. Not that this is a barn, but it was just kind of, let's gather together some, our skaters and put on a real show. And this came from Sparky. And he would always have ideas throughout all of the years of scenes that he would want. His underlying message to me was always, we need to create moments. We need to create the humorous moments, the poignant moments, the lump in the throat moments. We have to take them on a journey and have balance in the show, and it became my mantra to create the shows with that in mind. We had a little bit of background. Sparky and I met when I was in Ice Follies, and with Judy. We go way back, yep. And the character of Snoopy was contracted in 1971, and we subsequently did television specials each year. And it was Snoopy directs the Ice Follies, or Snoopy is in Europe with the Ice Follies, or Madison Square Garden with the Ice Follies. And so that's when I met Sparky. And he would always say, when you retire from the road, you should come teach at my skating rink. And that's what I did. And I started teaching a little bit in 75, then went back on the road, and then 79, I came here for good. So my background and my choreographer, Helen Maxon, kind of, is part of my background of how I approach doing the shows. But then Sparky, what I wanted to speak to a little bit is that we began doing the Christmas shows in '86. We had 4 summer shows, 79, 81, 83, and 85. And then in '86, we began the annual Christmas shows through 2003. And I always loved, we would start casting and writing in the summer. So usually in about August, I would open my door upstairs. By then I had an office upstairs. And I would put on, "It's the most wonderful time of the year." And I'd open the doors, and I'd put up full blast. And all the doors down the hallway would slam shut. Oh, please. Jim's, dough. Anyway. And then we would, Sparky and I would exchange ideas. I was teaching then, so I'd come off the ice in my jacket. He was having morning coffee, and I'd say, Sparky, I've been thinking about this kind of a scene. And that sounds good. He'd usually come up in the afternoon and sit in the yellow and blue striped armchair. Jeannie's smiling because his favorite color was yellow. That was his chair. And I'd play him music, or he'd play me music, and we definitely collaborated. He totally let me have my head on a lot of the scenes, but he was very involved. To the extent that he, over the years, gave me some challenges. I don't know if there's anyone here that remembers the Whispering Hope, which I believe was one of the first ones. Were you in that show? No. Whispering Hope?
Oh, I don't know.
He loved hymns. And one year he said, I want to do Tennessee Ernie Ford music. And I said, okay. You mean you got 16 tons? What do you? No, I want to do the hymns. Only Tennessee Ernie Ford's hymns, which was Come to the Church in the Wildwood. And so I thought, okay, how am I going to do that for a Christmas show? And we turned it into this wonderful sort of Alvin Ailey-esque country church number. And then he came and he said, I want to do Henry V. Remember this one? Henry V. Okay, Henry V. Yeah. So, okay, well, there's, wonderful. There was a movie, the Kenneth Branagh movie had come out, and there was a wonderful musical score. And I thought, oh, yeah, okay, I can see that. And do these great big red flags to depict the battle. And he said, yeah, but I want the Shakespeare, I want the dialogue spoken. Okay. All right. And so we ended up, Molly Boyce, who I don't know if she's here, but anyway, she was the chorus. And she was a local actress, and we put her in a cape, and she would tell the story. And then I hired a British guy, Paul Heath, gave him a Madonna ball. He had to learn the Shakespeare, do it while he skated, and he did the St. Crispin's Day battle speech and the whole bit. So it was a challenge. There were some in the audience, I'm sure, saying, I'm at a Christmas show and I'm seeing Henry V. I don't quite. But Sparky and I loved it. And then there were the fun things, and Judy, you'll remember this, you had gone to Scotland, and he came back and said, I want to do a Scottish number. And he said, I want these songs in it, Mary's Wedding, and I'm blanking now, there were a bunch of other, Colleen's here, I know she skated to Come Home to Bonnie Jean. And I said, well, okay, if we're going to do a Scottish number, we have to open the show with it, and we have to have a pipe band. And we have to have Snoopy in a full-on kilt with a full bonnet and the doublet jacket. I learned all the Scottish terms. Just coincidentally, there was a woman in Petaluma that made kilts. She made Snoopy a 54-inch waist kilt, perfectly pleated with the horsehair and we.
How much did it weigh, Chris?
The costume, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot, probably a lot. And Snoopy led with the mace, the whole pipe band through the audience, up and over the front runway and out, and playing Scotland the Brave, and an 8-member pipe band with the drums and the whole bit. And we also, I was reliving this yesterday when I was talking to the guy from the Press Democrat. I said we did what was considered kind of not cool, but we used the red Royal Stuart plaid, which is only supposed to be used for the British royal family. But we figured we could get away with it since it was Snoopy. Anyway.
Am I allowed to?
Are you allowed to interject? I don't know.
I promise you. Is it going? Am I on? About a year later, Fergie of the London family was in a little bit of trouble with her dating.
And toes.
Her toes?
Doesn't she get?
I don't know the.
Sucking her toes or something. Anyway. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, there was she put out a book called Budgie. It was about an airplane for little kids, and they were bringing it out at Toys R Us. No, what's it? FAO Schwartz in New York, and they said, "What can we do? What can we do? Who can be her escort? It's going to hit the paper." Snoopy in his kilt, and she said, what's your tartan from, Snoopy? And he just went,
I don't know.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay.
I took some of her time.
Okay, I have to tell this story on Jill. And then there was the year that we wanted to do, the year that Craig Gates built the set with the pediments, the castle pediments, and that was the year we did Phantom of the Opera had come out. We had to do with the, Paul Heath and the Cape, but we also did Fort Zindernhof. And we had Snoopy heads on poles, so it looked like Snoopy was coming out of each of the pediments. And I think this was the number. And then we had Jill get lost in the desert in a Volkswagen, painted camouflage. It was a cut-off Volkswagen. And she had to get out and she, look in the hood. It had to, soundtrack. It had to sputter. And you had to say...
Wait, what did I say?
Water.
I forgot my line. It's okay, though, because my mic wasn't on.
Okay,
there
good,
we go. Now,
good. Okay, what was your line?
I said, water, I need more water.
Water, I need more water. And
But
then,
now, like Judy, I'll interject, we were out to dinner before planning the show with my dad and
Yeah,
Karen
right.
and I, and he said, what if we dump a bucket of water over your head? I said, well, will it get a laugh? He said, yeah, for sure. I was like, okay, let's do it. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, how many shows are there? It's like 40 shows.
yeah, and that happened.
Yeah, the last night they
Volkswagen?
put,
Yeah.
some employees, are probably in this room somewhere, put ice in the bucket. So.
Oh, no.
Anyway.
So anyway, that was the fun, and just the adventures continued. We also did these grand numbers, the Busby Berkeley number, where all the skating girls had to learn to tap dance on little, discs, and they had to walk in the middle of the show while the audience was seated, through the coffee shop, up the stairs, through the catwalk, and out the spotlight booth backstage so that they could descend the staircases. And many of you have walked through the catwalk and banged your head how many times? Yeah, it was an adventure. The cocktail party, starring Jill and Scott Hamilton, was a memorable number. That was all Sparky's idea, about the Christmas party that happened. And, the guy, his girlfriend shows up, but she's dancing with everybody else, and she leaves again with Paul Heath. He must have been in a lot of shows. But she, and Scott Hamilton is does his lament, all alone. All his guests have left, and the doorbell rings, and Jill comes back. Yeah, it was, the list is too long, but great joy. The greatest, most joyful period of my life was doing the shows with Sparky, and it's so wonderful to be a part of this 50th anniversary. And Sparky was a great friend, gave me away at my wedding to Vincent, who's sitting there, and it's all good. Thanks. Okay.
Thank you, Karen. We all remember those shows, and that's the one question I get, probably more than any other question, is when are you going to bring back the ice shows? I hear that
I'm ready.
So many times during the year.
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
Yeah,
I'm ready.
I know it. Sure.
All right. I'm going to say that Karen skated in the shows and was gorgeous.
Oh, we all know that.
Thank
Did you all
Mary
hear
Louise.
that?
Thank you, Mary Louise.
Did everybody hear that? Okay.
Okay. So Karen,
How I got the job.
Karen mentioned Jill. Well, Jill ends up being my little sister, not so little anymore, but Jill skated in many of the ice shows, probably almost all the ice shows I recall. After my dad passed in 2000, Jill produced and starred in the last 4 shows we put on in the ice arena. And she continues to produce what's called extreme wheel shows with BMX, rollerblades, trampolines. She was on, she takes place in these parks all around the world, in Cedar Fair parks, her shows are on. And she was on TV at, what was the show called? America's Got Talent. America's Got Talent for 2 seasons. Yeah, 2 seasons of her crazy stunts. She put a lot of kids in the hospital, as I recall.
Oh, I have insurance.
Yeah, okay. Anyhow, here's Jill.
So Woodstock Ice Productions is currently the family ice show production company. So even though our shows aren't here, which it'd be fun someday to bring one back, maybe on a smaller scale. It might not be as big as before if we do that, but Karen and I continue to work together at Knott's Berry Farm, which is one of the 11 Cedar Fair parks that have the Peanuts characters. So if you don't get enough here, you can head out to their parks, and we produce shows together.
And Great America. Snoopy is
And Great
on
America.
ice at Christmas time.
Yeah.
Down at Great America.
2 hours away. But yeah, so I would, clearly the ice skating. The rink it's interesting to me. We're redoing it, but it's lasted 50 years, and so have all of us in this room, which is the best part. And first of all, thank you for everybody who came here. It really means a lot to see everybody who showed up last night, today, later on, tomorrow, because to me, you can build an arena, but without a community of people that, what's been unusual, like people say, oh, what, you have because I live in Southern California, people go, you have an ice rink? I go, yeah, and they're just picturing ice rink. Most ice rinks, it's 4 walls, ice skating surface, and some vending machines in the corner, and I think the history here, which was created on passion, it was created on the passion of both our dad and mom my mom's crazy passion for building things, which hasn't ever ended. If you go to Kauai, you'll find out she has a botanical garden and she's making children's gardens. Like, she didn't finish with the ice rink. It was her passion, my dad's passion to give back to the community. He was so appreciative of his success because what he did was based on passion alone. Passion, and he finally agreed. Obsession. He had said, no, I'm not obsessed. Okay, well, maybe I am withdrawing the strip. But it became, for so many people, probably everybody in this room has stories that they can tell, which I hope when we go out for the barbecue and the rest of the weekend, everybody will have the opportunity to share stories. Or I don't know if we have a short Q&A at the end with questions. Great. So then I can keep shorter here. But there's so many to tell, and first of all, I do, Jim Doe was a most amazing friend and mentor to me. In addition to all the ice skating, I decided to, when I was working for Rollerblade, to show up with a bunch of people and start rollerblading all around, and even down the ramp in the gift shop, and everyone's like, what are you doing? You're not supposed to be doing that. I'm like, well, I just did. So, hey, Jim, can we put a ramp there, And Karen probably reluctantly agreed to put a small half pipe in the show, and I had to rollerblade, then run backstage, get all the pads off, get my ice skates on as fast as I could, while her mom, who was working backstage, as soon as I got the pads off and I'm starting to put my ice skates on, she's already put the pads back on me.
She was dressing.
She was backstage. So there are so many things. I do want to, in addition to thanking the community and everybody that this has become their life. There's so many, like Craig talks about, people who got married or had their first dates or whatnot. I had another friend I used to skate with in Team Rollerblade for years, and it's kind of, when Craig was saying that, he used to always say, everyone who met during the course of the ice shows or the rollerblade shows, it was like, because it was our shows, we were like good Cupid and bad Cupid. So I think the arena has been good Cupid for a lot of people. And I guess we don't have to go into bad Cupids, but it's out there somewhere. But it's the support and the fact, I think Gina, who does an amazing job, we're so lucky to have her here. Because we all know this has been a home to people. Some people have never skated. They just come here to have lunch. They come here to make friends, as a place to go. People have, everybody has journeys in their life. Everybody's got things going on, good, bad, and different. And this is a place where people can come and they can introduce their kids to their special times. And I feel, I feel really great that myself, Monte, Craig, Amy, who couldn't be here because one of her grandchildren is being born today, I've heard, or is born? It's almost. In process, on the FedEx truck. Hopefully Amazon Prime, right? And Jeannie with creating this wonderful museum and supporting this as well. We know that we didn't want this to go away for our community. And the only people who actually live here full time is Craig and Jeannie, but they put in so much hard work with all, I'm not here enough to name the rest of the staff, but I know Judy is very incremental and keeping everything going, and then you got to keep Craig happy to keep everything going, so, it all, one big circle here. But, so I just wanted, it wouldn't go without saying, and this very museum, I remember years ago, before my dad passed away, Jeannie kept saying, I want to make a museum, My dad was like, why do we have to make a museum? Remember, he didn't understand why we needed a museum. And I sort of like, well, I don't know, maybe. And then I'm like, it's pretty amazing that we have this. So thank you, Jeannie, and everybody that works hard, Karen, with the museum. It would be, I didn't want to go without acknowledging that we may keep the rink here for the community, but without a community coming and having their life experiences, no matter what it is, whether it's figure skating, hockey, eating lunch, shopping at the gift shop, just sitting outside at the tables. My dad used to always say to me, he goes, too many people have lost the art of just hanging out. And he would love to just see people just hanging out, having a good time, and having what he always said too, because he had his table in the corner of the rink, and people would come and sit down, and I'd be sitting there in between a skating thing, and he'd start asking questions, and like some of them were like real questions, not just surface talk, and I'm just like, whoa, is he really asking that many questions to this person, And he just liked to have, and then they'd get up and leave, and we'd talk, and he said, well, I think too many people don't ever want to have real conversations, because I've done real conversations, and ask people about themselves. And this weekend is a good time for us to, run into people. Some of us may recognize each other or not, or I don't know. Are we going to have name tags today? Because that was helpful yesterday. Yeah. Of course, it's really bad when you have a name tag and someone says, hey, Jill, how you doing? And then I look at their name tag. They're like, oh, you don't remember me, do you? I'm like, no, maybe not. But by the end of the weekend, we can all remember each other. I'm probably going over my 5 minutes, but I'll give one way story, because I grew up being a teenager here too with all the crazy stuff. I think Craig did, and maybe Monte way more crazy things. I remember, I don't know if I should tell my Halloween story. Is Mike Cavalli in here? No, but it's my best one.
Let's hear it.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll tell a short version. And Monte also may or may not remember when there was a lot of employee parties. You remember? Yep. Who remembers employee parties? So many. Okay. There was a Halloween one where Monte decides that him and I are going to be pumpkin farmers. We dress up in overalls. He, for some reason, made me roll around the dirt, so I really looked like a farmer. Put pumpkins on our head, not the kind you buy at the store, like a real carved one. I had to carve them, too. Do you remember this?
Yeah, but you're missing half the story, but that's okay.
I'm getting there. We went to the rink, right?
Yeah, and?
And we paid at the box office?
No, you missed the first half of the story.
Oh.
The first half
The
of the story.
fish masks.
No, the first half. I am on. Okay, Okay, you can't hear me? Can I borrow that? Closer, it's like right here. Okay, you guys can hear me. Can everybody hear me? We're at the rink. I had one of those Nixon masks and I wore a suit. Jill was dressed as a witch. okay, with a hat and everything. And so people saw us at the rink like that. Then we went up to Dad's house, and he said, okay, we're going to do a double costume, okay? Actually, a triple costume, okay? So we got these Creature from Black Lagoon mask fish heads we put on our heads, and then we carved the pumpkins. So we'll put the pumpkins on, we'll wear the overalls,
Yeah.
okay? And then we'll come back to the rink, okay, and pay to skate. Okay, and no one will know who they are because they've already seen us in these other costumes. Okay, so go ahead.
Yeah, we did couples only and everything to really fool them.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Then we went back to another Halloween house party. You were in a regular costume. I was back as being a witch, I think. And everybody's walking around like, who are those people with pumpkin heads on? I go, I don't know. I thought I knew, and I looked through, and there's a fish mask. And so I have no idea why we did this.
They said, come on, tell us who you are. So we lift off the pumpkin heads, and they're fish. They're two fish.
Yeah, so. And that was a pretty harmless story. So, but my all-time favorite story, if the other person in the story doesn't mind, was years ago. I was going to a Halloween party with one of the Ice Guard employees here. Invited me to go, and I'm like, I'll never go out. I'm going to go. So it's a costume party. So he was dressed as, who remembers Saturday Night Live, the Bumblebees? Does anybody remember that? Yeah, he was dressed as a bumblebee. You remember this, right? And I was dressed as, I borrowed from Sue Torkelson, for anybody who remembers her, I borrowed her I Dream of Jeannie costume. And I was, I didn't know the people at the party. I'm like, okay, I'll go. I'm dressed as I Dream of Jeannie. This is kind of a bit much. So we go, and we get to the front door, and I think it was a girl or a guy, I can't remember, opens the door and goes, didn't anybody tell you it's not a costume party anymore? I was like, oh man, this was a first date. And so, and he's like, well, let's go in. I'm like, well, maybe, can you take me home? We should probably go change. So that was all good. We did. We went back, got on regular clothes, went back to the party. And all night long, hey, weren't you those guys that showed up in costume? As a bumblebee and I Dream of Jeannie? So anyway, so it's just one of many funny stories. I think probably everybody here has funny stories. A super quick one, the mornings when we're all doing figures and it's real quiet and all the moms are sitting in the coffee shop, having coffee and eating donuts and bagels and, talking about their kids out there skating. And we're relatively young, and Amy and my friends and I, who, sometimes our focus wasn't on our skating, we decided to go upstairs and we created a figure skating dummy with ice skates and tights and a dress and everything, and just to kind of wake up the moms, and we threw it out the window. Yeah, they moved pretty fast. So, yeah. So those are just a few, but we can save all our stories out for the barbecue, and but I just so appreciative of the friendships, the lives. I hope the next 50 years after we get the rink back on its feet will bring more memories to all of you, your kids, your grandchildren, and new people that join our community. And as Jim Doe would say at the end of any conversation, have a nice day. Right?
Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Jill. Thinking back on probably I think the funniest thing that ever happened in the rink as far as my memory was that there's nothing like going to the ice rink in the morning. The ice is freshly clean with a thin layer of water on it. And we were there one morning, and Dave Baxter thought, God, I got a great idea. I think I'm gonna take all my clothes off and slide down the ice naked. Well, when you put a warm body on top of a thin layer of ice, he slid for a while and then, and he was stuck. I wish I would have had a camera for you. Sunny side up. Anyhow, and when you talk about throwing the girl, I did that with Snoopy one time. I had the big stuffed Snoopy dog, and I was looking out the top window, and Snoopy was waving to all the kids, and all the kids kept coming closer and closer, and Snoopy's leaning out further and further, and they're coming closer and closer. Finally, I have like 30 or 40 kids, and Snoopy's leaning out the window, and Snoopy fell. Oh my God! And I've never seen so many kids start crying, traumatized. I think about 10 kids. 10 kids. Anyhow, moving on. I digress.
Can you imagine growing up being the youngest sibling with these guys?
Yeah, that was pretty bad. Let me
There's
introduce
more
to
of that
you.
at home.
Let me introduce to you my older brother, not much older, but he's older, Monte. And Monte is a novelist. He's produced, I believe, 5 novels. Is that right? 5? Yep. Something like that. And for the hockey community, Monte has played and sponsors a senior hockey tournament every year. And I go back to when Monte was like 35, and the senior tournament started when you were 40. And he kept thinking, I'm never going to make it to 40 to play in the senior hockey tournament. They're probably going to end it, or I'm going to die before I get to be 40. And he kept waiting and waiting and waiting. And now you played from, 40 to 60, I think, something. You end up getting 20 years in out there playing hockey with a lot of wins. Anyhow, Monte Schulz, take it over. Tell me your story.
Does my mic, everybody can hear me, can't they? Yeah. So, I don't know, I don't think do I need it? Should I? I'll try it. Turn it on.
Now try it.
Now does it better? Okay. All right, so, well, I did play in the tournament 14 times. I was lucky. I won 12 gold medals and 2 silvers. So I only lost 4 games in the tournament. And but I have to tell you, the experience of playing in the tournament was not as much fun as when I was 35 or earlier and practicing with the teams and playing little scrimmages. Because when you're there in the tournament, at least me, I wanted to win. And so I watched what I ate, make sure I got enough rest, and didn't, fool around and visit with too many people. And we just came and won our games and left, because we played in the top division, and it was super competitive. So, I never enjoyed playing in the tournament as much as I did before, socializing. But I don't really right off the top want to talk about hockey. I want to talk about somebody who's mentioned here, but not really that much. I was really close, very close to my dad, and everybody, of course, loves my dad, and I did. It was very close. Made me very sad when he died. I was not as close to my mom, but my mom's. I feel to a certain extent my mom has only been given lip service to. Well, she designed the rink. Anyway, getting back to Snoopy did this, Snoopy did that. The reality is that the entire rink is Mom's creation. The aesthetic of it, everything. And I feel, I was walking around the rink with Gina last night and showing her, true enough, Gina, elements that she hadn't really noticed in the details of this rink. And so I want to give you a little background of what it was like. In our family, because I'm a writer, and I also write music now, and people ask me, where's the music come from? So nobody asks me about my hockey, because nobody in Southern California knows I even play hockey, right? So, and they know me as a writer, and they know me now as a songwriter. But our family, there was an aesthetic. Dad loved reading, and Mom loved music and interior design. And so we had music playing all the time. So we had, Mom loved the musicals, and so did Dad. So we hear My Fair Lady, we hear Moon River playing. Those are my memories of our lives. And when they decided to do the rink, it was sort of a seamless transition into it. My mom's passion was building and designing things. And I know that this is sort of an unintended reality, but one of the big reasons why they did the ice arena was because Mom had run out of building at our property in Sebastopol. It's just a fact. There was nothing left to build there. They had built a 4-hole golf course, and Mom designed and had built my dad's studio there, and the property was kind of, for Mom, sort of built up and built out. And so what next? And the idea of the ice arena was all-consuming for her in ways you can't possibly imagine, her detail. We went skiing in Squaw Valley a couple times, and you think, oh, it's a new family activity, going skiing. Not really. Dad didn't like skiing. We actually really went, as I look back, I understand it completely. We went so Mom could study and understand Blythe Arena. And if you've ever been to Blythe Arena, you can see there are similarities in it, okay, in the design. So it's torn down now, a big gaffe by the state of California to destroy the Olympic arena there. But, and then we also, the National Hockey League expanded and had Oakland Seals, and we were going down to Oakland Seals games. And Mom was having we would listen to the Seals games on the radio, but I knew Mom didn't really love hockey. She loved the Seals games going down because she would go down and talk to the arena people. Okay, so I remember her going down and discussing the glass that went around. It was Herculite, but they weren't going to use Herculite at the rink. They were going to use plexiglass. So all the details, she sent Don Meacham, his wife, to Switzerland, and she had gone too, to take photographs, which you've seen in the albums up in the gift shop. And they took photographs and created these murals, and they're big photographs, and they put them on scaffolds, and then they painted in. So they are painted photographs. And the aesthetic of the rink then has a specific color that I was urging Gina to return to. Generally speaking, those of you who see ice arenas, you see the colors are sort of in blue and winter kind of colors, but they're cold colors. And they make ice arenas cold, building them out of cinder blocks too. The arenas are notoriously cold. There's a rink down in Southern California I used to play in at Simi Valley. It's a very great rink, but it's a very minimal building, and it's all painted in shades of blue, from lighter blues to dark blue. And you go in there at 9 o'clock at night, it just feels cold and it feels dank. You know, the plastic stuff you walk on, the rubber mats are all black, and it just feels dark, it feels dank. Mom did not want the rink like that. So the colors of the rink are a sort of an olive green, and Jean and I discovered the original color. When you come into the arena area and turn directly to the left, you'll see a tree. And you go to the door and look on the side of the door, and you see the original green. The green that the rink is painted now is, honestly, it's the wrong color. It is, I told her. I said it's the wrong color. And it's the wrong color. It has too much blue in it. It's too dark, and in some places it's too vibrant. It's the wrong color for the rink. The colors, it's not a proper, what we call, anybody seen pictures of my Facebook, the Victorian stuff I have? It's all, okay, those are called colorways. You can have 50 colors and they'll all mix if they're in proper registration with each other. So certain colors in the rink now have fallen out of registration. But this green G and I found will allow the rink to be returned to that. So the colors were that green, a shade of orange, shades of yellow, and of course the brown of the wood. And they're all in proper registration with each other. You can see it in the seats, in the seating. You'll see the seats with the brown. You'll see the colors work. And if you saw the original green, you'll see it works like that. The ceiling panels were yellow. They're white now, and the white is not correct for the rink either. But the rink had an ongoing aesthetic to it that was very detailed. So the other thing you ought to do, I showed Gina last night when we walked around. Look at all the wood carvings. Okay, they're all done. Ed Doty and his contracting crew did those. The rink was designed by my mom in conjunction with Steele and Van Dyke. And she told me, I've been sending her emails over the last week, she had a lot of fighting with them about it. They did not want to build a rink like this. They wanted to build cinder blocks. They didn't want to have so much detail. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Well, the rink, you're supposed to walk in, it's supposed to look like a Swiss chalet. And so walk on the inside of the rink, and walk the perimeter and look up at the carvings, and you'll see that they are either, they're variations of each other, but they're not the same. And it creates a better stylistic flow inside the rink in doing that. And that was the idea of this building. They called it, we don't hear this much anymore, but it used to be called the most beautiful ice arena in the world. Okay, and that was the idea of it. Okay, inside and out. So when you stand outside the rink and you look at the building, and the idea that they're called the flower balconies, okay, and then go back inside and look at the facade at the back, and then the side balconies, you'll see it's all variations of the same design. And that's how you create this look that's very unusual and striking. And as I was pointing out, it needs to be maintained. It needs to be, the color registrations have to be the same, and the wood has to be maintained and painted when necessary to maintain what we have is a very beautiful ice arena. So we, the early days, well, one thing I want to tell you, Craig and I were talking outside, my poor brother. Yes. He has such a bad memory. I was last night at the museum. Somebody said, "Yeah, Craig said, by the way, I said, "Yeah, did you guys know that I was the first skater in the rink?" They said, "No, Craig says he was." Oh my gosh. Okay, I will tell you. No, I will tell you the story because it all has to do with. Barbara was telling me once about a debate I had with somebody we know, and saying my story is better. It has more details. Okay. So here, the idea was this. The idea was because we did this rink with the Baxters, Skippy and Merle and Zellman, the kids. I was super best friends with Steve Baxter. We used to, actually Steve and I used to spend the night at his house on Friday nights. And we would watch Love American Style and Fantasy Island. We'd go to bed, and then we would get up and we'd drive to the rink at 4 o'clock and play for 2 hours before the junior hockey club guys. So we just circling around shooting pucks for 2 hours by ourselves. But Steve and I are best friends, so the idea was the Baxters and the Schultzes were ceremoniously to step on the ice at the same time. Okay, but Mom, those kind of details were not as important to Mom as the building of the rink and whatever. And I want to tell you, incidentally, that the rink, without the boards, without the ice, without the panels, is just an enormous building. You cannot appreciate how gigantic it is. Walking in, do you guys remember? It just seemed vast. Steve and I used to take footballs and try to kick them up to the top of the roof. We couldn't even come close, okay? It was huge. So they put the ice down and they painted it white, so it looked beautiful. It looked like one of the sheets of paper. It was fantastic. And when are we going to skate? When are we going to skate? Well, everyone's going to do it together. But then I came back from school one day, and Mom's going running around, and she goes, "Oh, by the way, if you want to go on the ice, you can." I'm like, "Really?" And so I went to get my skates, put them on. Steve goes to get his. Okay, he just come from Montgomery High School, and I get on first. Then Steve went on. Then I was the first one to fall at the rink. Boom. Okay, I hadn't skated really much in 2 years between the old rink and the new one. Wham, I'm down. Steve skates. Gary Baxter, the oldest of the brothers, Gary showed up from Montgomery. Gary goes on. And then I believe Craig skated because I was thinking this last night. No, I'm not going to say, and I'm not going to say it was anybody but Craig because you have to think the story doesn't make sense for anybody but Craig because everyone else would have been too young to be there at that time. It was right after school. So yeah, anyway, so that was the story. But the rink was, it seems so long ago now. And I have to say this, that my boys, I was asked, Jeannie asked me, and then asked me, were the boys gonna come up for this? Well, I said no, because my boys don't have any memory of this at all. They've never skated at this rink. They don't know anything about it. I haven't lived in Santa Rosa in 41 years. So it doesn't really mean anything to them that much. And they said, yeah, one of them, I said, would you go up? He said, no. Okay. The other goes, well, maybe. Okay. And so, but they want to come up here. But so to me, it seems like these days we're talking about seem like a really long time ago. How many people in this room remember Bill Gossage? Yeah. Wow, seriously? Yeah, Bill, he used to haunt the rink at night. Everybody remember that? He had his kind of Beatles haircut, and he played with the sound systems, and he had there's somebody he worked with who just followed him through the warren of the rink and everything. And he, does anybody remember the record that came out, Quadraphonic Switched on Bach? Everybody remember?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, he debuted that to it. He hooked up some massive sound system, and when the sessions were over and the rink was closed, he hit play. Boom! It was massive sound of the Moog synthesizer. It was fantastic, and Bill was a strange guy. He was just water all over the place. And we had multiple managers, right? Because we had Merle, then we had Bill Gossage, who was Bob, what do you call him? What kind of man? He was not the full arena manager. What was he? Yeah. He was very specialized. And then we had Pete Sterner was in. Pete Sterner was in charge of the counterculture element of the manager. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So how many people remember that you used to be able to drive in front of the rink? Okay. Yeah. Do you guys have any idea why that stopped happening? Yeah, because Friday nights it was like 4th Street. Okay. Cruising in front of the rink. It was just like out of control, all right? It was out of control. People were, in fact, I think the first thing they did is they put a little speed bump, and then that just didn't stop it. Because, yeah, people were like racing from one side to the other, like American graffiti, right? So, and those were the days. So it just seems there have been so many changes in the rink. And, but the spirit of the thing, I'm always surprised. I'm surprised that all you guys are here and everything. Everybody, I mean, I know the employees, they all want to see each other again. I remember their wild parties. I remember being young. But we had, it was a good time, and we lost people, right? That was every generation. To me, the story of Sonoma County are people dying in car wrecks. You know, I was telling somebody the other day I've known of like over 20 young people killed in car accidents over the years. And we always had 2 or 3 from the rink. It would just happen in every generation of people. But it was part of life, and it let us know that this arena was part of the community and part of growing up in many ways. And so, I don't know, the hockey was, I don't know, I guess it was fun. I played with everybody. And hockey, you got to understand, it's not like figure skating, where it's, except for the, cat fights and the backbiting. Hockey, it's like right on front, and there are some good moments and bad moments, there. But I was pleased that I always thought that, I guess I would be playing in the Snoopy tournament when I'm 70, but my good friend Dave Riley and I haven't played in, I think Dave hasn't played in 12 years. I haven't even played a game in 10 years. I haven't been to the rink. I haven't played in a Snoopy tournament since, does anybody have any idea last time I was there? Like 12, 14 years ago or something like that, But I love the museum, whether Dad would have liked it or not. I love it. I think it's fabulous. And it's a love. It's difficult for me because it also reminds me that Dad's dead. Okay, so honestly, I think it's beautiful, but I can never spend too much time in here. I find it difficult because it's so close to Dad. But I guess to go back to what I started on, I want everybody to, when you go back to the arena, I want you to think about what my mom created, and because the rink is really her aesthetic. It was her idea. Dad obviously supported it and loved it. And so what happened to Mom? Well, after they split up, Mom bought a ranch and did building there, and then left for the Hawaiian Islands, for Kauai, where she has continued to build from a fantastic botanical garden on the north shore of Kauai called Na'ainakai. And you can see what happened. She expanded out. But the arena is part of her legacy as well. And I feel sometimes that it's sort of forgotten how much she put into it, how much of it is hers. And I talked to her, I emailed her yesterday, and she said that it was, she fought people all the time to have it the way she wanted, and it was her idea. And also she didn't want the aesthetic messed with, which I think it's true of anybody who creates anything. I write music, and I don't want the producers, the people, the singers go, can I make it my own? No, it's mine. It's my song. No, sing it. So I get someone else sing it if you don't like it. So whatever. No, it's mine. Just like Dad, he didn't have anyone help draw the strip. And the rink was Mom's artistic creation, is her vision. So I really encourage you after this to go into the rink and walk like Gina and I did last night and look at all the woodwork and see that it's all part of the same aesthetic. And then and try to remember that this is what this rink is all about. So
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Monte. And finally, one of my favorite people, sitting over here snuck in, goes by many names. Formerly, it's Judy Norton, and she was Judy Schwomeyer,
Yeah.
followed by Judy Sladky, followed by the world-famous Snoopy. Judy is actually a 5-time U.S. national champion. And she has many other titles to go with that. She also starred in the 1979 production of Snoopy's Musical on Ice, which we filmed here at the Ice Arena. And she continues to play Snoopy worldwide for over 40 years. Judy Norton.
I'm not that old. You done? Oh, gee, he forgot a lot. Anyway, thank you. I'm going to start out serious, which, as anybody knows, if you know me, this is very difficult. Seriously, my ex-husband, Jill Sladky, and I, as Judy Schwalmeyer, were 5 times national ice dancing champions. We had gone to the '68 Olympics to show ice dancing as a sport, and we had just come from the World Championships in 1969, and we had placed 3rd. We were on the podium. And so Sparky had invited the national champions from that year to come to open his rink. Well, we went to Cleveland, we went to Boston, we went to Philadelphia. We had a tour, and this was part of the tour that we thought. We didn't have any idea that this was going to be so different. We were just champions going where they took us and put us. So we walked into this building, and I couldn't believe it. It was the most beautiful ice rink in the world. And I met this man named Sparky. It's the first time I had met him. He said, "Call me Sparky." I felt a little embarrassed, but I did. And over a period of a little bit of time, we kind of got to be really good friends, as much as you can while everybody's working. And we would sit at the tree when you first walk in that you mentioned. And I said, "Sparky, this is just the most fabulous place." He says, "Yes, it is beautiful, isn't it?" And I said, "And it feels like it's real." And just then, one of the leaves from the tree fell. And I looked at it, and I looked at him, and I said, "How did you do that?" He said, "I don't know, but I better go check into it." Another time I was sitting with him, and I said, "Sparky, I'm really sorry. I haven't met that young woman over there." I said, "Is she an architect? What? She seems so busy." He said, "That's no woman, that's my wife." So that was my Joyce experience. Now I won't be serious anymore, I promise. That's just too difficult. This is what Sparky gave us 50 years ago. The people who were the cast of the show got this Snoopy. He's a little bit dirty. Do you know how to clean them? You put cornstarch on them. That's my Snoopy. And it was mentioned how beautiful Karen Kresge is. Can you stand up? You can see why I didn't fit in the ice show.
We have great memory.
Oh, we
toured
do.
Together how many years in ice fall? 8 years? 7?
Oh, it must have only been 3. Yeah,
Long time.
long time. And so, what do you do when, as my friend says, "But you're cute"? I figured that Sparky hired me. Does anybody not know what I do now? Snoopy and I travel the world, and when he's here, I'm not. Anybody not get that? Okay. So my feeling is that he hired me first for my height, because Snoopy. And then I'm the only person that would still be wearing these shoes after 50 years at my age. Okay, so that's that. Now, to your point, one of your points. You had a lot of points. Isn't he sweet? You threw him out the window?
I was young.
Don't you ever? Oh, I'm horrified. I couldn't believe I worked with these people. Somebody's nude on the ice. You know, I was taught to respect the property. Oh, yeah, right. As the family dog, I've worked through a lot of the sibling rivalries, and you know, I've listened very well, I think. Yeah. So this one. Yeah, I'm talking to you. I was in many of the ice shows, And this one year, we were doing a Caribbean number, and Karen Kresge is the director. I followed her as much as I could, but one day she said, okay, there's going to be a trampoline act. And Snoopy, you're just going to be down in front of it doing the limbo. I said, I'm sorry, what's the name of the show? Snoopy. They're Snoopy dolls, it's me. So I didn't even say anything to her. I went over to Sparky, who's always standing there usually, and I said, Sparky, she won't let Snoopy be in the trampoline act. Can you tell I got in the act? But it was not easy. Sparky said, if you could do a backflip. So I went into the rink all night that night and worked on it. Found out that yes, the head's a problem. Yes, the lack of sight is a problem. Yes, the girth is a problem. Yes, thinking you're going to die is a problem. But the feet are so big that when you take the back flip and when your feet come in, they hit the toes. So you gotta pick up your feet as well. Okay, so by the next morning, Snoopy was doing a backflip. Now, to your point, I had forgotten there were 40 shows. We're talking 40 backflips.
40 days. There were more than 40 shows.
40 days? How religious. Wow.
And you can find it on YouTube.
Yeah, the backflip is on YouTube. But since then, go ahead. I interrupted you.
Do you want to talk about the finale of the Purple and Gold Velvet number that one year that you were exiting and you had an incident? Snoopy had
That
an
wasn't
incident.
that. It was on Richard Dwyer's number.
It was on Richard Dwyer's number, yes, and she was exiting, because I'll let you finish.
Was
he was
exiting.
And then you have to tell
You
the
know, I
story.
can't teach these people. Snoopy is a boy dog.
Okay.
Okay.
And I was in the dressing room getting ready, and you had exited. There was a salute to Richard, a parody, if you will, 4 Snoopies dressed as bells with the eyelashes and gowns, and then the lead Snoopy in the tuxedo and the top hat that you saw today. And it was an absolute copy of Richard's number. And it was on your exit of that to go to do your jacket change, wasn't
Yes,
it?
it was a fast
Which
change.
Richard, yeah. And so she's moving fast, and she caught her he caught his toe pick wrong and tripped and fell, but had broken her leg.
Snoopy's leg.
Snoopy's leg. But
Into many pieces.
Okay. And
But it wasn't, I was still out on, he was still out on stage, so I had to jump so that people wouldn't see Snoopy
Right.
on the ground.
it was just as you were exiting.
And my legs trailing, but I got back.
And somebody came into the dressing room and said, Snoopy's broken his leg. I'll just use that. And I said, you're kidding. Why would I kid about that? And then Judy Thomas,
Yes, who's my best friend.
full gear, was already dressed as one of the Snoopies and knew that each of the scenes, that was the Christmas portrait year, and each of the scenes was introduced with Snoopy painting a portrait somewhere in the audience. And she went with the eyelashes and everything, went
she
out
forgot
with
to
the
take
right
off the
thing
eyelashes.
and began to do the scene, knew the show well enough.
Good.
But then and I remember the EMTs coming, and one of them had grown up at the rink, and we said something about, I remember saying, can you cut the inseam? You know, we've got to take the costume off. But they didn't. They cut up the inseam, took the head off,
They
put her
didn't.
on the gurney, takes her to the hospital. And then you have to tell the comments that.
Well, I try to keep the magic alive as much as I can. But at this point, they couldn't take the skate off of my foot because it was so broken and facing a very weird position. And so they left the entire, no, okay, this is reality. Are there any children-like people? The head is off so that Judy can breathe, you know, which I thought was a good idea. But he's in his, could you just go over here? Thank you. He's in his suit and one paw. The other one, they've taken the skate off. And my arms are out in a sweatshirt, and I've got the thing over me because I'm freezing because I'm in shock. And we get into the ambulance, and the man says, he calls up, he says, I'm taking Snoopy to the hospital. And I'm laughing hysterically, and he's looking at me like, this is serious, okay. So he said, he radios in, he says, I can't get her distal pulse. The paw is in the way. And the guy on the other end goes, I beg your pardon? He said, yeah, Snoopy's paw is in, and he's nervous because he wants to get some drugs into me so I won't pass out. Well, of course, I'm hysterical, laughing. And I said, can you just make the whoop, whoop, whoop go siren? I said, I'm not gonna do this ever again, so I need the siren. He says, we can't do that in this neighborhood. I said, oh, come on. He said, no. So anyway, the next thing was that he said, gee, and Snoopy, I'm lying down like this, and Snoopy's a little, well, he's
54-inch girth, yeah.
Oh, see, they always count. They weigh you in, they count your width. You're right, figure skaters are a little different. So anyway, here I am with this belly, and the EMT says, do you think we're gonna need the obstetrics gurney? And I said, I really don't know. I've never had a litter. I'm a boy dog. So now we get to the hospital. They bring out the gurney. They get me in there. And truthfully, in the emergency room, the only place that they had that would fit me was the obstetrics area. And why do they do this? The window, there's a window. People can see in there. What is that? No privacy. So I'm lying there with one furry foot, one regular foot, a Snoopy thing here. He's up like this, so I get in the stirrup position. And they're walking past, and every time anyone would go past, I'd go, ooh.
Didn't the nurses bring you dog biscuit cookies?
Yes, the nurses brought me dog biscuit cookies. But now they've finally taken the skate off, which, never mind. And then this man comes in, big guy, huge guy, and he says, we're gonna cut the costume. And I said, oh, no, you're not. Now, at that point, they cost $3,000, which was a lot. So I said, no, you're not. He says, well, then I'm gonna go get somebody to help me. I said, you do that. When he came back, Snoopy was lying on the ground. I had wriggled out. And the man said, he was not happy, because I knew he had to be back in the show. Ridiculous. So the man said, what happened? I said, well, I didn't want to tell you because I didn't think you'd believe it, but the Snoopy angels, they came in that door. And so that was the broken leg. Don't ever throw him out of the window again. What's the matter with you? Just for the museum people that need to come here more often always, there's going to be an Apollo 10 event on May 18th, and I'll be here to speak about that too. So just keep coming to the museum. Thank you.
Thank you. Woof woof.
Unless you want, no.
Okay, we're going to try this video one more time because I think it's special, and I'd like to see this. So she says there's no password. Oh, here we go.
It's a pretty tough question. Who knows what would have happened to me if I didn't walk through those doors? I'm a very small part of history by working for Mr. Schulz. Everything that I have today I owe to this complex. And I have friendship. I have friends of kids that work for me. I got to know their families. It's just a feel-good thing. I can't describe it anyway. It's like it was a hell of a ride. So.
Now we're going to have a quick Q&A. If the panel can keep the questions, the answers short. We'll try to do like 10 minutes worth of questions. I will hand you the mic. And does anybody who has a question for any of these panelists, raise their hand. I'll pass them the mic. And we can, I know you're all hungry, huh? Oh.
I just thought you should have our version, the ones who are waiting for an ice arena, version of how the ice arena started. Because we were, the dry rot settled into an ice arena. How could you get dry rot in an ice arena? I don't know. But anyway, we had no place to go. And Sparky brightly said, well, I guess I'll have to put an ice surface over on my grounds. And we all looked at him and said, Sparky, what about us? And he looked at us. And the next day, he and Joyce announced that they were going to do an ice arena for Sonoma County. So we all feel as though we had a little input.
Yes.
Because we were so sad.
Yeah. Another practical joke thing, since Judy was talking about a broken leg. I had a friend that had lost his leg in a motorcycle accident, and he used to skate, and as he fall down, his foot would come off with a skate on it and go sliding across the ice. And the look on people's faces to see a one foot go skating across the ice with no body on it was something to behold.
Would you think that Sparky was the original first Starbucks at the coffee shop?
I don't understand the question.
Can you say the question again?
One of my best memories is seeing your dad at the coffee shop. And to me, the environment that he created there was here first before any Starbucks.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. Yes, I would say then, yes.
That explains why Jill was there all the time, because she lives at Starbucks.
I do. But we didn't have an app for it back then.
All right, this one's for Monte. Anybody who skated here back in the 70s knew that Monte and David Baxter were the touchstone, the way they screamed around the ice. And Monte started teaching for a couple of semesters. He was teaching a hockey class. And I don't know if he ever figured out that all those people, all the students in the class, were attempting to see who could check him and take him down the most during the class. It was just kind of a thing going. So did you ever realize we were doing that?
Yeah, wherever I played, somebody was trying to. But I will tell you, I was teaching. Yeah, I was at Santa Junior College. I was teaching a class on ice hockey, and he was also taking a class in journalism. And I was taunting one of my students by making spins on them. And I went one way, and the person came this way with their stick at this level. Hit me right across the face, closed my eye, and almost broke my nose, and then I had to go to my journalism class for the first time. My teacher, Gates Vincent, always remembers that. When I saw you, I thought, oh my gosh, what happened? My class.
This isn't a question, but more of a statement. You know, I'm part of the Baxter family. Skippy, Merle's my uncles, and the Schulz family, Baxter family are pretty synonymous with each other. And I'm honored to be here today. I tried to convince Steve this morning to come. He's in Vallejo. Like, you're not that far. You need to come over here. But this is wonderful, and I'm having a great time. And so I just want to say thank you.
You know, you have to acknowledge how great Skippy was. I remember we used to have a speed skating club, and I was speed skating, and people from the city would come up and speed skate, and they'd be racing around the rink pretty fast. And we thought we were pretty good until Skippy came out there and went backwards and passed every one of us going backwards. And they were like the top speed. It was like unbelievable.
It's one thing about speed skating, that we had speed skating for a long time. Ken Reese passed away several years ago, but Ken used to organize that. And one of the speed skaters, I didn't know, hardly people know, was Jarmo Kaukonen from the Jefferson Airplane. He came up every Friday night, speed skater, and we all jumped barrels. And by the way, a Baxter story. I don't know if you know this one, but they had, when Skippy they put a show on, Skippy, Steve, and David up in Squaw Valley. And Steve and David screwed off so much that on one show, Skippy was so mad at him that he did something that no one else has ever done. He ended the show with a backflip on speed skates, which he said was incredibly dangerous, and he must have lost his mind, but that's how mad he was at Steve and David.
Hi there. I just wanted to thank your family for having this ice arena. I was lucky enough as a 5-year-old to have my parents bring me here from San Francisco for opening day, so thank you very much. My comment is for Jill. I'm wondering if you would share a nice memory from the Extreme Wheels live shows that you used to have. I brought my children to them, and they liked it very much.
Oh, well, thank you. We started that originally. I'd been working for Rollerblade, and we had a promotional performance team, and the ice shows were so big and successful, and I thought, well, what if we do an all rollerblade show, and it's going to be a couple hours long, and we'll get, it'll all be rollerblades. And my dad said, well, you need something more than rollerblades, like you add some bikes and skateboards and this and that. It was way before the X Games. So through some of my friends, John Tyson, who still builds ramps for the X Games and whatnot, he said, well, I hear Tony Hawk kind of needs a job, and Matt Hoffman and some of these, the very top skateboarders, BMX guys. There were not scooter riders back then, now there are. And so we sat down and we talked about it. We sat down with the ice show, with the ice arena managers, and I sat down with him, and they ran the numbers and everything and just said, oh, yeah, I don't think this is a good idea. You shouldn't do it, Jill. And I went back to my dad and I said, well, so-and-so says it, we probably shouldn't do it. He said, don't listen to anybody. He said, the problem with people is they don't have a vision. He goes, it doesn't. I said, yeah, but what if nobody comes? And he said, it doesn't matter. Charlie Chaplin would perform the same if only one person came or if thousands of people came. You got to do it. So we did, and enough people came, and I think we did it about 4 years, and 2 hours is a lot to fill, because you can't use all these costumes on bike riders and skateboarders. They'll quit. They're like, yeah, no, we're not wearing the Karen Kresge costumes on a bike and sequins or unitards. So we did it. We added trampolines and dancers and DJs. Every year we changed it up, and now it's been 25 years, and I still have a company, All Wheel Sports, and we've taken the act on America's Got Talent. We've performed in over half of the Cedar Fair parks and continue to do that. So it was just great that the community embraced it, and then we did camps outside. So and again, it just expanded the community of people and friendships that will last forever. I feel like people are always like, well, people I meet now, brand new, like, oh, well, what do you do? I go, well, it's kind of complicated. I was country riding horses while my mom was building things everywhere. Then I was an ice skater. Then I kind of did the LA acting, dancing, commercial thing, and then I did rollerblades. But then we do these shows, and they're like, okay. They're kind of like, sorry I asked. But anyway, but thank you for recognizing that, because that was a big part. And I also credit Jim Doe for being the person that was always there when everybody told me my ideas were not the best, to encourage me to do it anyway. And I see Richard Dwyer smiling, and he encouraged me too, and put on the rollerblades as well. So, if you can get a famous Mr. Debonair from Ice Follies to rollerblade, I think you've made it.
take one last question, and then we're going to break for lunch. It's up to you. Here you go. Wrap it up.
Yeah, this is not a question, but a statement. And sometimes we realize, looking back, that we should have said something. And the thing that I should have said to your dad is, Mr. Schulz, thank you so much for the ice arena, because it is such a wonderful place for the community. And our involvement was that I was a manager for one of the hockey teams. I knew nothing about ice hockey, but as a parent, as a dad, I tried to get my son involved in baseball, football, track. Nothing took, but ice hockey did. And it was such a wonderful experience, because I'm not a sports fan, but we would sit together and watch hockey games on the TV as a son and a dad. Thank you so much.
Okay, well, I'd like to thank you all for coming, and they will all be over at the barbecue, so you can take them one-on-one aside. If you have any other questions that you want to ask them, just round them up and get them. I know they're all hungry, especially the dog. You got to feed the dog. So thank you for coming. We'll see you out in the field.
Thank you.